I just wanted to say that the war on poverty, has had limited success, just like the war on drugs and the wars we're fighting now abroad.
Well, before the war on poverty, poverty in this country was up around 25%. After the war on poverty, it dropped down to about 12.5%. It has now hovered around 13 some odd percent since that. And since those times, we've had a slow diminishment of resources. So you could say that, yes, in many respects it's stalled, but also during that time, we haven't had a massive increase in poverty, despite the fact that we've had 30 years of stagnant wages since the implementation of the Great Society and that initial 10% drop in 10% plus drop in poverty. We've had, like I say, this massive wage stagnation and increased inequality. So I would agree with you. We need to
but I mean, look,
fight
at the end of the day,
poverty more aggressively.
I mean, at the end of the day, the war on poverty has been running for decades, and the status quo, and the diminishing returns. Of course, the first order returns were good. All across the world, the effect of welfare and poverty is positive. But I mean, your interview today just highlights the problem. If you look at the Hispanic population, for example, unfortunately, this hasn't really, their poverty has increased. And here's the thing that's really striking to me. A study came out recently that 80% of Americans are near poverty today. This is a staggering statistic. 50 million Americans are in poverty, below the poverty line, and 80% are hovering close to it. So whatever it is that we're doing, it is not exactly a great safety net, which is why...
No, in fact, it is a safety net. That is the point, Greg. It is a safety net. It is functioning as a safety net. People who could not eat can eat. But yes, I agree with you. We need more housing assistance. We need more development of low-cost housing. We need we need to change the laws in such a way that no longer give that tilt the playing field against unions, so that we can.
Well, let me argue in favor of one market mechanism, which I think should be expanded rather than just direct political assistance. I'm talking about education. So vouchers for education. You have kids growing up in underprivileged neighborhoods, and one of the earliest times, the biggest ways that they're being discriminated against is that they're not getting the same education as, let's say, rich white kids in a nice neighborhood that can afford to hire those teachers.
Right.
And if they had vouchers, their parents could actually choose to send them where they could.
How much? I mean, like, how realistic are what you're talking about? So, all right. So, in other words, okay, I'm a kid who lives in the Bronx, and my parents get how much money to do what?
So, if the government had procurement, if it had vouchers, and the market could produce schools, like I was saying before, charter schools and different kind of schools, they would compete on actually getting kids to go there. But if the kids have to go to that school, the local school anyway, why does that school have to try to compete with other schools?
So wait a second. You're saying, wait. Let me just get this straight. Okay. So you're saying there'll be private schools that will grow up that will be able to charge significantly less than it's charging now per student, right? Because how much of a voucher, like, okay, so I'm living in the Bronx. I'm living in the Bronx. How much money is the government going to give me to send my kid to Fieldston, for instance?
Well, however much they spend on the schools now.
Okay, so 40 grand a year?
Whatever it is, that money is now going to the school that the kid, by virtue of living there, that kid.
Okay,
that
I get it. So the solution is we're going to pull whatever it is. Let's say we're spending $4,000 per kid in the Bronx. That is an arbitrary number. I don't know what it is, but it's $4,000. Right. There's no private school that exists that's going to take that kid for $4 grand. But what you are managing to do, What you are managing to do is to starve that school of resources. So the kids who stay back there, the kids who don't, maybe this kid gets a scholarship, halfway a ride, or 3/4 ride to Fieldston, whatever. The kids who stay there, they're just chum. We're just going to throw them away. Here's another solution that you don't need the market for. Let's not tie education to property taxes. So that way, if you're concerned about the rich kid in the suburbs who's getting a good public education, let's now not tie education into property taxes so that we can actually have resources and disperse them fairly and equitably to all public schools.
Hold on. What about the actual outcomes? That you see that all these top-down solutions, like George Bush's No Child Left Behind, increased testing, it doesn't help. It actually shows that many kids are actually falling behind, and this testing is only hurting them.
Yeah, the problem was there was no funding
Yeah,
but I'm not saying let's have that testing regime. It's not because it was top down. The reason why Hitler was such a bad leader did not have anything to do with the fact that he pulled down both his pants when he took a poop. Okay? I mean, he happened to do that, and he and I shared that same attribute, but I'm not the leader of Nazi Germany.
Well, hold on, Sam, logically, if you're saying no private school would admit a kid for the same amount that a public school can, presumably because the public school has, efficiency, what is it called, economy of scale.
And
fine.
no profit motive.
Foul, right?
And no profit motive.
But that's fine. Then you're not worse off than you are right now. You don't have any public. Let the private schools have a chance to pop up and offer that service.
But
right?
there's nothing that's stopping private schools from doing that now. So all you're saying is let's give government subsidies to private schools.
I'm saying let government do procurement.
We do that already. We already subsidize private schools. It's called charter schools.
Right.
And there's no evidence. There's no evidence that charter schools produce better outcomes than public schools.
Charter schools are experiments. Some of them have tons of evidence that they produce better.
Some do, but we have no more control over what you're suggesting than we do charter schools. So we have already
that's
done.
The point of a market.
Greg, we've already done what you said.
The point of a market is to test things.
Greg,
and to see them
that's
in
great.
different ways.
We are doing it. We are doing it, and we have done what you're suggesting. We subsidize private schools. They're called charter schools.
Do we give the kids vouchers to go to these schools?
No, we don't. What difference does it make? Vouchers or subsidize? We subsidize charter schools. We give them funding. We give them free, in this city, we give them free locations. We do it already. The school doesn't care whether or not... The school doesn't care whether or not the student comes in with a check for $4,000 or they get it directly from the city. We're doing it already, Greg, and it's not working.
It's just the phone line is really actually for a few days now. It's still. I know it works for Michael, but people calling in, there's something going on. So
okay, I'll say goodbye.
And you can respond to it.
The fact is, and you can listen to this, Greg, we are already subsidizing private schools. We call them charter schools. We have little oversight over what they do. They receive our tax dollars. They admit only the best and brightest kids with the most engaged parents. And yes, there are some schools that are better than others. Some public schools are better than others. But in the aggregate, there is zero evidence that charter schools do any better. We're doing it already. There's your market solution. Didn't work.
You know what else there's zero evidence of? Hitler pulling down his pants when he had to take a poop.
That's true, too. And this idea that, well, no, if you have the kids function as a consumer and they go and pay for the schools, they'll make more informed decisions. I got news for you. I have spent hours and hours and hours and hours. My wife has spent hours and hours and hours looking at the best schools and this and that and talking to parents. And we are in the, the top 0.0003% of parents who are engaged in their kids' schools. And we, at the end of the day, we can barely tell if we're sending our kid to a good school. It's just absurd. All that happens in the, if you make it just completely a market-based solution, you know what school's going to get the most students? The ones that has the best graphics department and put out the best brochures. Give me a break. Honestly.